Well, the DA's policy head, Gwen Ngwenya, joins me now for this conversation. Gwen, thanks a lot for joining us this evening. Perhaps we should kick off our conversation here. 5 key black leaders from the party, they've resigned, and we've also got about disciplinary charges being laid against 4 others. As a black person in this party, Gwen, do you feel comfortable that the Democratic Alliance actually stands for you and stands for your beliefs as well as your role in this country?
Well, I don't think that way, and many people I know don't think that way. I'm much more than just saying as a black person or as a black woman. That's not what principally defines me. I've got a set of values and principles that I live by. I've got certain interests. All of those things make me who I am, not simply my skin color or my sex. And many in South Africa seem to have lost sight of that. And I find, quite frankly, this whole obsession about counting the number of so-called black leaders that leave the DA bizarre, because unless you can do a historical list of how many white senior leaders have left against a list of black leaders, then you can indicate if there's a problem, but nobody even attempts to do so. I've been involved in the DA for a long time, and I've known many senior white leaders who have left. There has never been a narrative that DA is purging white leaders. So I honestly find this a kind of concoction because we like sensationalist personality politics. But I'm the head of policy, and what I really have an interest in is to talk about policy instead of people.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about this policy, because unfortunately the issue of race cannot be avoided even in your policies, can it? Because the DA has interrogated the role of race in the economy. In fact, almost suggesting that the common justification for using demographic quotas or targets is broken. The party rather looking for fair equality. So then how do you start addressing the injustices brought on by an apartheid system? Yes, on black people especially, developed to keep black people at the bottom of the barrel even. How do you do so with the understanding that you've got right now?
You don't need to emphasize when you say black like that. I mean, the policy, this idea that we're trying to run away from race is ridiculous. And it sometimes indicates to me that people have not read the policy document. The policy is very explicit about the fact the majority of South Africans who are disadvantaged and find themselves excluded from the economy are black. We make no, we don't mince our words about that. So if you read the document, you'll be well assured that it recognizes that. And it recognizes that many of the inequalities we face today are directly as a result of an apartheid system of racial segregation. The question is, moving on into the future, or right now in the present, as we look towards the future, are we able to design a policy which will bring people into the economy and at the same time achieve the goal of non-racialism? So the question is, if you can achieve both those noble goals, because I would almost understand if the fear was that we have to choose between the two. So if somebody said to me, we have to choose between abandoning racial classification, which is itself a legacy of apartheid, and between economic inclusion, that's a tough choice. We'd have to debate that. But if I'm saying to you, it's not about choosing, you can have both. You can have a policy that abandons the racial classification legacy of apartheid, plus that ensures the economic inclusion of the majority who find themselves excluded, who are black. We're not shy about saying that. Why would you not choose to do so? It makes no sense to abandon or turn away from a policy that would achieve both those noble goals. So nobody is asking South Africans to make a choice between redress and non-racialism. We think you have a policy here that can actually achieve both. And it achieves both precisely because the majority of those who are disadvantaged are black. So if the majority disadvantaged are black, then if you have a policy that addresses disadvantage, then of course it also caters to black South Africans.
Yeah.
It's precisely because for that reason.
Yeah, I want us to get into the issue around some of these policies. And yes, having read the policy document in itself, one would see that unfortunately at the end of the day, it's about the voters, isn't it? It's about the people who get to decide whether or not they want to see your party actually lead them. And that's the big issue at the end of the day. You and I can have an intellectual debate, but at the end of the day, it's about the many South Africans who have to decide whether or not the DA actually stands up for what they believe in. So in the interest of the people that get to vote for you, we're looking at economic policies, for example. They've been criticized in the past by some of your leaders, including, yes, then former leader Joburg Mayor Herman Mashaba, who said, in fact, it didn't even put the interests of the poor first. So this social market economy, right, that has been put forward, how does it practically manifest itself amongst the masses, where indeed you're then able to cater to the masses as well as some of the realities and even justices that they're currently under?
You seem to, though, only be interested in the comments of former leaders once they've left the party. What about all the lovely things they said once they were in the party?
I would like us to answer I'd like us to get out of the, as you said quite rightly, let's get out of the politics of it.
Yeah,
Let's get into the economics side of it, the social market system in itself. How do we find it manifest? As I said, it's not about us. It's about the people that have to make the decision whether or not to vote for the DA. So in the interests of the people that you're supposed to serve, how do we then answer this and see how it manifests practically? This issue of a social market system, how does it manifest in society? How is it practically adopted so that South Africans can feel like you're standing up for what they believe in a South Africa that is truly democratic? How do we do that?
Sure, I can answer that up, no problem. I just want to remind you that it was you who mentioned Michelle, but not me. And so on the social markets economy, the reason why it's so important to distinguish this is that, again, sometimes there's a tendency to be false that some will say the DA stands for an absolutely kind of extreme free market economy where there's absolutely no government involved and we have no assistance for the poor. And I think it was quite important to also frame what exactly is our approach to the role of government and the economy. So we absolutely believe in an economy where the private sector and private players in the market are able to pursue entrepreneurial goals and to obviously also then get the rewards of those of their entrepreneurial activity. But at the same time, as encouraging a market that is competitive and open for entrepreneurship, we also want an environment, an economy that really provides for the most vulnerable. So we absolutely do believe in social policies that will help to, provide a kind of safety net and what we often like to call a safety trampoline for those who find themselves vulnerable, so they don't get trapped in a cycle of dependency, but policies that will support people back to standing on their own 2 feet. So those are absolutely essential to a social market economy where you help people thrive entrepreneurially, but it's not just a completely laid-back approach and one that doesn't recognize that some people obviously will need assistance who are the most vulnerable in society, and we provide that. And I think then the economic justice policy we discussed today speaks to that commitment of a social market economy.
Yeah. Gwen, we have to leave our conversation there, unfortunately, for this evening. Gwen Ngwenya, they're from the DA, highlighting some of their policies. Do you believe it? Do you not believe it? Do you stand with it? Do you not get to stand with it? Well, you get to be the ones that make that decision when you vote, don't you? But still